Hey everybody, Ryan here. Alright, I'm going to go over the standings as of the 26th of April 2021. This is after the last game of the evening, San Jose versus Arizona. If you haven't done so, make sure to check out the video I have of recapping all the games from this evening. Alright, other than that, make sure to hit that like button and also make sure to subscribe as well. It helps the channel out, and make sure to like as well because, like I said before, it helps the channel out because the more likes you get, the more the video gets out there when people search for stuff. So, hit the like and hit that subscribe button. Alright, let's get started. Alright, this was the North Division last week. Toronto was on top, followed by Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, and then Ottawa pulling out the back. This week, actually, pretty much all these teams have been pretty equal for a little bit now. And pretty much everybody's got a 500 record. So it's a close division. It really is. Alright, Toronto's on top with 65 points. Followed by Edmonton. Winnipeg has some bad news. If you saw my other video on the games for this evening, I told you about how Nikolai Ehlers is out for the rest of the season. And they did not talk about, at least from the report I saw, did not talk about the playoffs. That's going to be a big loss, especially if he cannot play in the playoffs. That is painful for Winnipeg because he's been a beast this year. Almost a point per game. I think he had 46 points in 47 games. That's a big loss. It really is. Dubois is going to have to really step up now. Alright, next up is Montreal after that, who they've been faltering bad. I know they won their last game, but still, before that, they were faltering pretty bad. I mean, Calgary's nipping at their heels. I mean, they only have one game in hand over them now. And right now, 6 points difference between those two. Vancouver, yeah, I know, they're 10 points difference right now. Vancouver has 5 games in hand over them. So theoretically, with those games in hand, Vancouver, if they won all 5, would be tied. That's how bad Montreal's been doing lately. They used to have a massive lead over these two. Not so much anymore. I mean, even Ottawa's still technically in the race. I mean, theoretically, are they really? No. But they had not been mathematically eliminated yet. So, I mean, 7 games left, 14 points, 54 points overall is what they could finish. So, Montreal needs 3 points. Or 1 point into Ottawa regulation loss, which an Ottawa regulation loss is probably going to happen sooner rather than later. So, I mean, look at these teams. 5-3-2 for Toronto in the last 10. 6-3-1. Edmonton's the best team in the last 10. Winnipeg 5-5. Montreal 4-6. Calgary 5-5. Vancouver 5-4-1. And Ottawa 5-5. Winnipeg's on a 4-game losing streak. That's our largest streak. Other than that, the only one not with only a 1-game win or lose streak is Toronto with a 2-game winning streak. And Toronto was on a losing streak before that, so this is the division that honestly is a lot closer than the point totals suggest, especially of late. So, you're probably... I question that 4th spot now, but those other 3 are probably pretty set in stone at this point. Even if Winnipeg completely falters at this point, I find it hard to believe that they don't still slip into the playoffs. But that's where we sit right now. I mean, I don't think Toronto, Edmonton are going to go away. So I think those 2 are still going to finish at the top. That's where we're going to go with this, I think. Alright, last week in the East Division, we had Washington, followed by the Islanders, Penguins, Boston, Rangers, Philadelphia Flyers, Devils, and then Buffalo. And as you can see, Buffalo actually had been doing pretty good as of last week, surprisingly. I mean, they're not making the playoffs. God, no, they're not. But Rangers were nipping at the heels of Boston. The Pittsburgh Islanders and Washington were separated by 3 points. This is going to be a fun division to watch down the line, I have a feeling. Because this week, Pittsburgh's on top in this division. It is so hard to figure out this division. It's like Pittsburgh was awful to start of the year, and then they went on a beastly streak. I mean, right now they're 8-1-1 with 4-game winning streak in the last 10 games. They're 8-1-1. Washington kind of faltering, a mediocre team of late. They're on 2-game winning streak, so they're starting to turn around, but 6-4 in the last 10. Islanders now 4 points behind Pittsburgh, 3 behind Washington. That trade for Palmieri and Zajac has not really worked out thus far. I think Palmieri has 2, maybe 3 points since he came over. Zajac 2 points, which I guess in that area that's actually a win, because I wouldn't have expected him to do a whole lot. But that big trade is not working out thus far, in my opinion. They're 5-4-1 in the last 10. Boston 6-4. They've been playing better, but they're back on a losing streak again. They've been playing really good before then. And they're only 4 points ahead of the Rangers, but they have 2 games in hand over the Rangers. That's the advantage they have. So it could theoretically be an 8-point lead. Theoretically. But I don't know. The Rangers have been hot lately. 7-2-1. They keep that up the rest of the season. And Boston keeps up that mediocre streak. Same with the Islanders. There's a chance the Rangers could pass both, if not just one. So those two need to figure out pretty quickly if they want to keep it up in this race. Washington, I think, like I said, they're turning around. Pittsburgh is just on a massively hot streak right now. 8-1-1 last 10. Now for the others, Philadelphia, still mediocre. 4-4-2 in last 10. I don't think they're going anywhere. New Jersey, 0-9-1. They are definitely not going anywhere. Buffalo may actually pass New Jersey at this point. Wouldn't have seen that coming out of the 18-game losing streak they had. But they're 4-5-1 last 10, which, considering before then, how few wins they had before then, I think they'll take it. It's not the end of the world. It's not great, but it's not the end. All right, on to the Central. Last division, we had Carolina, Florida, Tampa, Nashville, Dallas, Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus. So let's see how it's working out this week. Carolina has actually clinched a playoff spot. They clinched it this evening. So they're tops in that division with 69 points. Florida next, followed by Tampa. Tampa's been really mediocre of late. I mean, Vasilevsky has looked human of late, which is weird to see. Nashville's next. They're clinging on to that last spot with Dallas 2 points behind them, with Dallas having 2 games in hand. So I think Dallas may pull this off and get that spot. I mean, they're 7-1-2 in the last 10. Nashville's no slouch either, 6-3-1. But those games in hand, they're what's going to decide this, I think. All right, next up is Chicago, who's fallen back further and further. I mean, they still have done far better than I think most anybody would have picked at the beginning of the season. Especially once Jonathan Toews went down for the entire year. Kirby Dach was hurt the first half of the year. I don't think anybody would have picked them to be one of the better teams of this division the first half, if not the first 3 quarters of this season. Then you have Detroit, who, honestly, I know they still have a losing record. But honestly, they're overperforming what I thought they would. I did not imagine they would be this okay. I mean, they're for where they're at in their rebuild, it's surprising. Honestly, I would not have imagined they'd be that high up. I really wouldn't have. And Columbus just, that franchise is a mess this year. Oh, we're going to have to see how that plays in the offseason. They may end up being last in this entire league at the rate Buffalo's going. So, who knows? That team just, they're a mess right now. I mean, for the 2 goalies they have, they should not be this bad. They really shouldn't. I mean, yeah, Werenski's out for the rest of the year. That does definitely hurt. Big time. But even when he was there, they weren't winning. It wasn't making a difference at any point. So, at this point, I mean, I think your top 3 are definitely set. I don't think those are changing. Nashville and Dallas are going to fight out for that last 4th place spot. That's where we're going to be with this at the end of this. So, I mean, at this point in the standings, you can tell who the top 3 are for the most part. Other than maybe that Central Division. That one could still fluctuate a little bit with the 3rd place team. But as of right now, I think all 4 divisions, you got your top 3 set pretty much. You just got that 4th place spot, pretty much all of them. All right, on to the West. Now, last week we had Vegas in first. Colorado being out with COVID hurt them, but they still have those games in hand. Followed by Minnesota, Arizona, St. Louis, San Jose, LA, and then Anaheim. This week, Anaheim didn't even get a point in last week because they have a 5-game losing streak. Vegas have been beasts of late. 9-game winning streak. 9-1 in the last 10. 70 points on the year. First team in the league to clinch a few days ago. Colorado is clinched. Minnesota is clinched. So your top 3 are definitely set here. I mean, St. Louis is fighting for their playoff life at this point. Losing Dunn and Parenko, we'll have to see how long those two are out for. But they still won tonight against Colorado, 4-1, even without those two in the lineup. So they need to keep playing like that. They're going to hold on to a 4th-place spot. And they do have games in hand over the 2 teams that are chasing them. 3 games in hand over Arizona and 2 over San Jose. So that's an advantage too. Because that could possibly knock out San Jose if they win those 2 games in hand. I mean, they win those 2 games in hand, puts them at 52. San Jose would be 9 back at that point. Possibly. But they could also be exactly where they're sitting now because St. Louis could lose those 2 because they do have a tougher schedule. Now, Arizona lost to San Jose tonight. They have 3 more games against them this year. They need to win at least 2 of those 3 if they want to maintain where they are. San Jose has a tough schedule coming up. They have 1 more against Arizona in 2 days. Then they have, I believe it's 4 straight against Colorado. At least it was at the beginning of the year. It may have changed with COVID and everything. So they still have 4 more games against Colorado, though. And they've won 1 of the previous 4 this season against them. So they go along with that same number. They're getting 2 out of 6 points possible. Because when they lost against them, they lost. It was not close. It was a drubbing. But the 1 game they beat Colorado, they beat them pretty bad too. They're not close games when these 2 teams play. It's just one just gets manhandled. So San Jose has a chance, but it is a slim one. But it is a chance. But that 2-7-1 last 10, that's what hurts. But they won their first game in a while this evening, so we'll have to see if that changes things, because Couture's out of his funk, Kane's out of his funk, so we'll have to see how that works. Arizona I'm surprised they're even in at this point. I mean, their offense has been very lackluster, but their defense and their goaltending is still spectacular. That's their saving grace. And Aiden Hill has played fairly well for him this year with Kemper and Ronta being hurt constantly, especially Ronta. LA still technically is in it. I mean, they're 6 points back, same amount of games left to play as St. Louis. And they beat Anaheim tonight for the first game of their 4 straight games they're going to play against each other. And wasn't chippy tonight. I have a feeling by game 4 it's going to be fairly chippy. But that could definitely help them if they win all 3 of those remaining ones. That'll put them at 48 points. They could technically be tied at that point, depending on how St. Louis, Arizona, and San Jose play in that time. So, well, between Arizona and San Jose, one of those 2 has a guaranteed 2 points in the next game because they're playing each other. So that's where the West stands. I mean, what can you say? Anaheim's at the bottom easily. LA still has a chance. I mean, especially these 3 games against Anaheim, and they've played really well against Anaheim this year. That could be their saving grace for this season, this playoff year. They could sneak in. All right. So this is your top 10 teams currently in the standings. These fluctuate constantly too. All right, you got Vegas, followed by Colorado. Oh, this was last week. I'm sorry, last week. Yeah, it sounded kind of funny. They were only 2 points apart. I'm pretty sure it's a little bit more than that now. Vegas, Colorado, Carolina, Florida, Tampa, Washington, Toronto, New York Islanders, Minnesota, and Pittsburgh. Get down, cat. Get down. Sorry, my cat jumped up in my face. All right, the top 10 this week. Vegas, Carolina, both have clinched. Pittsburgh, Florida, Colorado are your top 5. Now, Florida, like I said from the beginning of the year, because they've been so good all year, they're the most surprising out of the bunch, especially since they're still not doing too bad considering Ekblad's out for a year, and probably the playoffs. I mean, Brandon Montour is no Ekblad. I'll say that, but you know what? They're still pulling them out here and there, and if they can get Verhaeghe back, because that guy was a beast for him this year, that could definitely help him. I mean, Barkov and Huberdeau, they're going to play the way they play. They're going to be offensive dynamos, but if that's your only two, they're going to get shut down in the playoffs. I mean, you got to get some of these other guys back and get some other guys producing too. All right. Next up, the bottom 5 of the top 10. Tampa, Washington, Minnesota, who has clinched, Toronto, and the New York Islanders. And the Islanders, like most of these teams up here, other than Minnesota, who have been just decimating teams lately, 7-game winning streak for them, 9 games for Vegas, Pittsburgh 4-game winning streak. And you got Tampa and Washington and Toronto with 2-game winning streaks, respectable. I mean, Florida's 5-4-1 last 10. Colorado was 7-3. They've now lost 2 in a row though, but against a desperate St. Louis team. That's where we're going to see the difference now. Is these teams fighting for a playoff spots? They're a lot more desperate now than earlier in the year. So we'll see how this works out. But it's fun to see how this is working at this point, honestly. All right, last week in the 11-21 range, we had Winnipeg, Boston, Edmonton, New York Rangers, Nashville, Dallas, Montreal, Philadelphia, Chicago, Arizona, and St. Louis. You can already tell St. Louis has moved there. So is Dallas and Nashville and the Rangers. No, actually, they're all pretty much the same. Other than St. Louis, Arizona flipped. Yeah, actually, I think it's pretty much the exact same. Other than Winnipeg dropping down and Boston, Edmonton jumping up. Is it? Yeah, it pretty much is. Yeah, those are the only changes in the middle teams. I mean, Winnipeg makes sense, 4-game losing streak. You can tell why they've dropped. Amazingly, Boston's lost 2 in a row, and yet they still jumped over them. And Winnipeg jumped over them, so there you go. And the Rangers are just chugging along, man. They're them and Dallas. They're just beating teams right now. Nashville's no slouch. LA, near as Edmonton. Boston's doing well. Arizona is just 2-8. That is just not good enough right now. I mean, granted, they don't have Connor Garland right now. He is injured. But you got to find a way. You have to. I mean, the game Jacob Chikrin has had this evening against San Jose, and you can't rely on him to do that every night. He's a defender, but he's having a beast of a year. All right, the bottom 10, or the bottom teams from 22-31. Calgary, followed by San Jose. Or this was last week. Calgary, San Jose, Detroit, Columbus, LA, Vancouver, Ottawa, Anaheim, New Jersey, and Buffalo. This week, not a huge amount of change. I mean, LA and Detroit, Columbus has dropped hardcore. What were they last week? This week they're 28. They were 25th last week, so 3 spots they dropped. Maybe not a hardcore drop, but that's pretty bad at the bottom of the league. You drop that much. And granted, there is a lot of closeness with a lot of these teams, but at this point, Buffalo, the way they're playing, may end up passing Anaheim and New Jersey here pretty quick, because Anaheim and New Jersey are just awful of late. Columbus is going to keep dropping because they're just playing terribly too, but they still have a point advantage over quite a few of those bottom teams that take a winning streak in a bad time of year to win if you're that low in the standings, sorry to say. Ottawa's been playing fairly well. I think they may end up being a pretty good team next year if they can pick up a few pieces. I think they'll have some more cap space this next season, so that would definitely help them. But, these teams are probably the most shocking is Calgary and Vancouver. Oh, sorry, I moved the page on. Yeah, those are definitely your most surprising, but your bottom 5, Ottawa, Columbus, New Jersey, Anaheim, and Buffalo, those are your teams that, as of right now, yes, that can change. At least those top 2, probably more in the bottom 3. But they're the teams that are going to get your best chance at the higher draft picks. And I am working on quite a few different projects right now of different videos to do, including a early mock draft sim of I'll probably do this one at the end of the year, or at the end of the season, once all the games are done. I'll see the final standings, and I'll probably do like a lottery. Probably on Tankathon, they have a pretty good lottery machine. So do it that way and see who's going to pick what. So look out for that video when the season ends. And just look out because I have some other projects coming. So make sure you keep an eye out. So hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell next to it so you will be notified when those videos drop. Make sure to like the video, comment, and share. Let me know what you think of these teams. Who do you think is going to end up being the worst team in the league? The bottom team, since Buffalo is moving up fast. And without Jack Eichel. That's the amazing part. I mean, they're not going to go a lot higher than where they are now, but they're just moving up. Because, I mean, they went from, what was it, like 20 points like 3 weeks ago to 33 now. I mean, 13 for bottom team. That's not bad. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you all next week when I do the next standings video. Bye, everybody.